The question is, what is truth? And my hesitation in answering is exactly because if I define truth, then it becomes my version of what I understand truth is. Um, Being honest and speaking truth is one part of that, but then it is not all of that. You could tell a lie for a higher truth, if you will. There is an analogy, if you will, a story from the Puranas where um, you are saving somebody's life by telling a lie, and therefore you're actually following a higher truth. So it's not a dictionary meaning of truth that one needs to understand. That is one aspect of it. The other part of it, truth, is when we apply it for ourselves, is integrity. The word that comes to my mind as I practice truth on an everyday basis is integrity. If I believe in something, if I speak something, then are my actions and my choices in my everyday life, are they in tune with what I believe and what I speak? Am I an integral person? To me, staying in a state of integrity is practicing the value of truth. That is the second one. And the third one is the truth that Vedanta talks about. Everything that I see, everything that I experience seems ephemeral, seems fleeting. The world that I see today doesn't seem to exist tomorrow. The value that I seem to practice today seems to go out of fashion tomorrow. The clothes I wear today goes out of fashion tomorrow. The food I eat changes from place to place. The kind of education that I want changes from culture to culture. And so everything else, everything in our life seems to change. So what is the one thing? Is there one thing that is permanent and unchanging? In my experience, when I close my eyes, what is it? I was a youngster. Where is that youngster who was jumping through the 3 rings of fire and doing yoga on the rope? He's not there anymore. Where is that youngster who did this or that? So from the child to the youngster in me, the child is not there in me, the youngster is not there in me, the grown-up is not there in me. So something in me seems to change, and yet the I in me seems to be going through all of this, and the I in me doesn't seem to have really changed. So is the I the truth? And if so, then what is this I that seems to survive my every experience of awakened state? I might be rich today, I might be poor tomorrow, but the I is the same. Richness and poor changes, social status changes, right? Relationships change, prosperity comes and goes, health comes and goes, but the I seems to experience all that. The I goes to sleep, the I dreams, the I goes into deep sleep and seemingly seems to non-exist, but the I is watching that, experiencing deep sleep, because we come up and say, I slept well. Does the I transcend death also? That is $1 million question, right? That has to come with experience. But if the I if the I is permanent through all this, why can't I survive death as well? And therefore, is the I the truth? Then what is the I then? How is this I different from the I in you? Is there any difference? Is that the truth? Baba would say, we were sitting around him, and as he was explaining this concept of I, he said, one day he said, who is Sunder? I raised my hand. I am. Who is Hirok? I am. Who's Kote? I am. Who's Kumar? I am. And Baba smiled. He said, see, you think you are different, you are different, you are different, you are different. All I'm hearing is I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. The I is the same. There is no difference. So that is the truth. And so our definition of truth, that's why, changes with different experiences in life, with different as we become more and more aware of our own self, our definition of what truth is will definitely change. So that's my understanding of this value of truth. It cannot be put out there saying, this is what truth is, practice this. That's when it becomes dogmatic. That's what we need to watch out for when we convey the idea of value to our children. We give them all these ideas and let them think about it. Because for a child, if you take them to a 2-year-old and say, where does water come from? And the 2-year-old will point to a tap. Or maybe 1.5 years old. These days, kids are very smart. So they will point to a tap and say, water comes from a tap, right? But the same child, after 2 more years, you say, where does water come from? He will grab you and take you to the water tank on top of the terrace and says, water comes from here. And the same child, after 5 years, will say, water comes from the city. And that same child will say, water comes eventually from the sky, right? So for this child, the idea of truth was every time he was right. He was right when he said water comes from the tap. He was right when he said the water comes from the tank, water tank on top of a building. He was right when he said the water came from the city. He was right when he said water comes from the sky. And he would be right when he says water is actually, it comes from evaporation from the earth into the sky, and it's a big cycle. He is right at every stage. He is practicing truth at every stage, but at every stage, truth reveals itself to him based on his capacity to understand, his or her capacity to understand and appreciate it. So you have to ask yourself, that's why I said earlier, put a question mark and say, what is my definition of truth as I see it today? And accept that definition. Because at that point, if that's what your heart, not somebody else's definition, but your heart opens to that and you accept it and you feel at home with that definition, you have to ask yourself, nay, I like this definition, I'm going to keep, but don't refuse anything else. At this point, this is what I feel at home with, go with it. And then allow that definition. It will definitely change. It will not change only if you close your doors and say, nay, that is all not true. This is the only truth I will believe and nothing else can be true. Then you're closing your mind to learning. But if you say at this point, my definition of this value is this, and that is, you are right. You cannot be wrong. Each one of us have our own understanding of this truth. Like the 6 blind men, all of them who went to feel the elephant were right in that description of the elephant because they experienced a part of that elephant. So you and I will experience truth in our own way. And you will be right, I will be right. I hope that helped. I think it's a very, very good and pertinent question. I wish the answer was simple to this. What is needed today is spiritual education, not religious education. I draw a distinction between religion and spirituality. Spirituality frees you from dogmas. Spirituality opens the doors to understanding of your own inner self. Religion is a school from which you graduate into spirituality. Religion is the bud which opens into the flowers. It's a blossoming. It's a journey. We lack spiritual education. We have not been able to share that in schools for whatever reason, and therefore there will always be children are growing up. We all grew up learning A for apple, B for bat, and then we grew up learning about what did we learn about geography, history, everything outside world. We learned about politics, we learned about economics, we learned about science, and we learned about everything outside of us. When I talk about spiritual education, all I'm saying is, what is there? Where is that education that teaches going within? And the distinction I draw between religion and education, spirituality, is only here because in religious education, you'll say, God is there, Baba is there, he'll look after you, God will look after you. And we create a victim mindset as if I am somehow a victim of circumstances and there is a God who's angry with me, there's a God who's happy with me. None of that is ever taught in Vedanta or never the essence of Baba's teachings. And that becomes religion. That's why I said that becomes dogmatic teaching. Oh, don't do this, Baba will get angry. Hey, he's watching you. So we create an idea to a child that somebody is watching him. No. If we can come up with the education which opens up the child to ask, who am I? What is my role in life? And we say, nay, bacha hai, he's too young, they won't understand. No, they will understand. They actually will begin to teach you. I've done small meditation sessions with 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds, and I distinctly remember this 3-year-old. There's no reason for her to lie. She sat and said, when you told light, I felt I was enveloped as a small child. A 3-year-old barely able to speak is telling me this. I saw I was completely enveloped by light, and I saw Baba in front of me blessing me. I didn't tell all this in the meditation. I just said, open your mind and allow the God to come. And so, how does this child experience it? Because you gave them that opportunity, and they had no conditions, preconditioned mindset to think anything other than, okay, open my mind and think. So the child is like a sponge. If you can open that and allow them to draw upon the universal resources of the self, teach them that they are empowered, that they can always draw upon their divine self to go within, then we will not hear about mental illnesses, because that idea of mental illness comes from low self-esteem, from us, from intense guilt, from being addicted to substances and things like that. And all of that compounds itself. But all of that stems from what? From a false idea of who I think I am. And social media adds to that today, right? It makes it more complicated, because now I project something as it is. I have a false idea of who I am. Then I project an even more false impression out there for people to like. And then I have to now live up to that impression. And therefore, I create a very stressful shadow upon shadow selves. But if we can open doors to children of true spiritual education, teach them the power, the joy to meditate, then I think we have a solution. But like I said, it's not an easy solution, because it's not something can be implemented easily. But we can start with our own children at home. We can start with ourselves. One of the other things I always go back to is Baba's teaching is, when you're speaking about something, when we talk about something, how can we not make it dogmatic? How can we not make it religion? Very simple. If we become role models of what we want our children to be, what we want the society to be, if we become role models, that's all that is need. That's all that is needed, actually. If Baba was not a role model of what he spoke of, or what he talked about in his discourses, or what he spoke about in conversations with us, if he was not embodying it, then you wouldn't have me sitting here and talking. I would have got my degree and walked out, and I got a job, and I could have done something else with my life. But what changed us? Was it his discourses that changed us? Yes, to some extent. But most importantly, what touched me most was his integrity, his manas ekam, vachas ekam, karman ekam. His mind, his thought, his word, and his deeds were all so closely integrated. It was uncorruptible, if you will. He was very clear on what he wanted to do, and the success or failure and all of that end goals never bothered him. This is what it is. This is what must be done at this moment. That clarity comes from that being a role model. And he used to tell me, because we were becoming, he trained us to become lecturers in his college, and we taught. He would often tell me, if you are not a role model, how do you expect boys to follow what you're doing? And especially when it came to yoga and all of that, he said, if you practice, you teach. If you stop practicing, don't teach. And once I told him I want to be a yoga professor in his university, he said, he just laughed, and he said, when you're 50 and if you're practicing, that time when you teach, people will listen, because it will show in your body, in your mind, and in your soul what you have practiced. Appudu chustam, he said, that time we will see. And that time I didn't understand. I thought Baba is talofying, he's just pushing aside the idea that I want to teach yoga. But then I realized later, in 2011, when he passed away, I turned 50, and I knew that was a moment for me. Even in those words of Baba, there was a little bit of reality check. But then the idea there is, if you don't practice what you preach or what you want your children to be, if they don't see you as proof of concepts, then how will they practice? What is motivating them? Today, children ask, okay, you're a Sai Baba devotee, you're not a devotee, you are a devotee of God, you're not. But you get upset about the same things, you get upset about the same thing. What is the difference in your quality of life? For the most part, being devotees of God or in the spiritual path, we tend to become more judgmental. And that's the only feather in our cap. We have become more judgmental. No, 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 no. He is not good. This is not good. This is right. We get more and more caught up in which is good, which is bad, what is right, what is wrong, how this should be done, how that should be done. We're building more and more conditioned mindset. We're not going beyond that. So can we become embodiments of what we preach? Can we become role models? If we can, if we can imbibe spiritual education in ourselves, if I truly sit 5 minutes every day and practice, I am God, then the child will say, what are you saying? I said, I am trying this. Come, join me. And then do it as a family, do it as a group. And slowly, the Vedantic principles of delving deep becomes a real journey for everyone. It is the absence of this kind of spiritual education, is the absence of role models that we are kind of, it's, as a society, we are getting into this looking elsewhere. Then now we wait for the next guru to come along, we wait for the next avatar to come along. For what are they going to tell you? The same thing, that you are God, right? So I think spiritual education is the answer for everything. Every illness that we have, mental or physical, every situation in our life, the root cause is ignorance. We have forgotten who we are. And because we have forgotten who we are in this mess. If only we can go back to that understanding. And it can begin when every one of us individually in this gathering begin to say, you know what, let me figure it out. And then in your understanding and in your spiritual growth, because your self is connected to every other self, you will be able to garner every other self. And whoever comes in your contact will feel the heightened consciousness. They will feel it like we felt when we were in Baba's, simply in his presence. Their time and space is really doesn't get bound by that. So if that spiritual education is missing, and it gets lost in either antagonism, if you will, is that what's the right word? Agnosticism or disbelief or religious belief. They can get lost in all of that. But if you can keep Vedanta, spirituality, purely spirit, like Baba kept, the essence is more important than the formalities that surround the essence. So thank you for that question. I hope I did justice. No, thank you for that question. You did a wonderful job asking that. I realized it much after the fact, not at that time. I'm talking about that experience now, after so many years. After that experience, and after many such experiences where I began to catch myself, and where Baba himself would begin to reflect about, for example, he was kind enough to choose us to sing bhajans in his presence. Some of us were chosen. And at first it started me singing in Baba's presence. So it was about Baba. And then it began to be me versus somebody else. How can I sing like him? Or how can I make this better? And so my singing, my way of rendering a bhajan began to become more important. At that time, if Baba would get up on the chair and walk away when I would sing, I'd realize, wait a minute, what's going on? This is not about me at all. A simple thing like bhajan, once Swami explained very beautifully. He said, when you sit in the mic and sing in a mic, you're actually doing a service. Because there was one boy who sang this song, Aparadha Kshama Karo, Sai Prabhu, forgive me for my sins, kind of a bhajan it was, right? Anath Bandho Sai Prabhu. There is a song, there's a nice bhajan. Anyway, he came next day, he said, next time you want to sing such bhajans, you can sing it in the bathroom when you're having a shower. I will listen to it. I will forgive all your sins. Because you are feeling guilty, if you come into the mic and sing, why do you make everyone else follow you? And they are not committed the same, they are not guilty, why are you dragging them into your guilt? So he began to teach us that when you are in front of a mic, for example, at that moment singing a bhajan, he said, you're doing a seva. And it's not about what you feel at that moment and how good you're feeling or how bad you're feeling or your yearning for God is all immaterial. When you're sitting there and you're singing that bhajan, sing namasmarana, let everybody forget their problems and join in the name of God, not about, so that brought us into this idea of, wait a minute, I'm not singing this bhajan to express my devotion to Baba. And that was a learning for me. And it is actually for me to be his instrument, and what he wants me to do, not what I want to do here. What does he want me to do here? And that's a difficult choice sometimes. Sometimes it comes very clearly to us, but sometimes it becomes a learning. And at every time in our whatever offering that we are doing, we need to ask ourselves, is it about me or is it about being an instrument to the divine? What does he want me to do? How does this has to go out? And then it becomes very clear that and once you put that value out there, the value of being an instrument of the divine, then the question is always, what does the higher self need? What is the need of the hour? What is the cause? The cause is more important than the individual. And that individual could be me or my loved one. I can say, you know what, you stay back. You don't have what it takes to do this. It needs to have guts for us to say that, because the cause is more important, correct? If every student who wanted to sing bhajan got a chance to sing bhajans, then the student Sai bhajans would not have achieved a standard that it is today. There was somebody there sitting and saying, no, you know what, you stick to sports, don't come to bhajan singing, because you have another talent that you can offer God. You may not be necessarily here. And there were others who said, I love Vedic chanting. I will take that. I don't want to get. So each one of us have to rely on what we feel at home, what's unique. And what I'm saying here is, it's not about an agenda that I have that comes through me. It is about what is the need of the hour at that moment. And then when you begin to fulfill the need of the hour at that moment, then you are not going with your agenda. Okay, this is a learning I'm experiencing even today. Like, for example, I teach yoga. I do all of this because I've learned this value of, when you offer something which is priceless to you, don't put a price tag to it. That's a very simple teaching of Baba that he gave us. And therefore, I don't put a price tag to my teachings at all. It's all free. So the question is, what is the need of the hour? When yoga has become a business, when meditation has become a business, spirituality itself become a business, what is the need of the hour? The need of the hour is therefore to break that norm and offer everything free. Just like Baba did when education was becoming a business, he offered free education. When medicine was and is becoming a business, he opened free. So he has given us that. So when the need of the hour is fulfilled, then it's no longer your agenda. You're just fulfilling a need that is to be met. And then you end up at the night, when you go to sleep, your heart is filled with gratitude that you are being used by the divine for a purpose. And whether you personally succeed, don't succeed, all that really becomes immaterial, because the universe is fulfilling its purpose through you in the divine scheme of things. And that's what matters. So while it's not clear sometimes, I think when we put that value out there, I think our conscience is the best judge, and you will know at the end of the day whether it was about you or it was about Baba, about God, that drove you, that motivated you to do what you had to do. It's a wonderful question. Wonderful question. The how does the plant know that it has to become a big tree? It doesn't. It just takes at that particular day what is called to do, it does. And slowly the innate nature of that plant to become a tree begins to unfold itself, right? There could be 100 trees of the same species in a forest, but yet no tree will be the same. Each tree will be unique in its design, in its height, in the way it is spreading out its branches and all of that. That uniqueness is not planned by the tree at a conscious level. At the conscious level, you follow where you that it's called the sweet spot. Somewhere in your heart you will know, this is what I love to do, this is what I want to do. A call comes from inside. You will know what it is, in terms of career choices, in terms of uh, what relationships and friends you get into, everything. There is a spot which will click inside you. You follow that. Now, is that the right one? You will never know that. So there will be this trial and error. There will be this back and forth, that chiseling of the sculptor when he sees the statue inside a rock. He knows that piece of rock is the one. The statue seems to be the one, but then it doesn't manifest without, he has to chisel his way into that rock. And that has to be done carefully, trial and error. He might have chipped a little extra here, extra there. So it's never a smooth journey. Why am I explaining it in this way? Is simply because when we say find your calling, we assume that because I thought it was my calling, everything is going to smoothly manifest. It never happens like that. And because things get rough, what was once a dream becomes a very difficult thing to manifest and almost seems impossible, and you hit a brick wall. You might say, maybe this was not my calling, let me try something else. Those are times of testing. That's when, if it was a real call, it will survive. And you will know it in your heart, which is why the spiritual lifestyle, the idea of meditation, the idea of going within and tapping into your infinite self, all of that begins to help you in this journey. Helps you. The sculptor, when he comes to a part of a chisel, a part of the rock, if you will, where he says, how do I go further now? I know that the idol is inside this, but this is a very tricky place. How do I do it? What then does he draw upon to get that idol? He draws upon his knowledge, his wisdom, his intuition of whatever he knows about the idea of sculpting. He brings out that is tested in order to make that idol manifest. So just because you find your inner calling, it doesn't mean things are going to become smooth. It will be tested. But the whole beauty of that test is getting the gold out of the fire, getting the diamond out of the charcoal, if you will. And that manifestation is where you truly begin to tap your inner spirit. If you look at Baba's own life, it wasn't a very easy path. It wasn't. Even to this day, it wasn't. If one person believed in him, there were 10 others who were ready to criticize him and throw stones at him, if you will, by way of words and things like that. But that didn't bother him, right? He had to work very hard for his mission to succeed. As he was young, he would go to devotees' homes. They were not devotees. They were just opening their doors to this young boy who would come and do bhajans. I've spoken myself to some of these old devotees. In fact, Baba took us to lunch at one place in Chennai, into one old devotee's home. And he told her, tell them your stories. And she told some very beautiful, charming stories of how Baba, as a youngster, would come into her house late night from Bukkapatnam. He would catch a bullock cart train, something. He would come and say, I want to sing bhajans in your house, call people. I have this grand mission in life. And she would think, this young boy, what is that? Chalo, he wants to do bhajan, let him do bhajan. And Baba would sit and do bhajan. See, to me, when I hear those stories, it's like this young child never gave up his dream. He said, yes, it's going to manifest. It's going to manifest. He didn't wait back for devotees to come, but he went in search of devotees. He went in search of people who are looking for spirituality. He started doing it. So for him, his mission was finding fulfillment at every step of the way already. He didn't wait for something to manifest, for a mandir to come up or an ashram to be built. All of that became incidental. For him, the manifestation was from the day he sat and at the age of 13, he sat and sang Manasa Bhaje Guru Charanam. His mission had already begun. And so this lady would tell us how she would tell Baba, enough of bhajans, now you go to sleep. You are keeping us all awake, because he would go on for hours. So it's just very beautiful to hear these stories. It inspires me that what is our job? Our job is, I find something, I like something, let's just go dive in it and give all you have into that. Everything that you have, put into that, every part of effort, and then allow it to manifest itself in its own energy. Don't put an agenda out there. Don't say this has to come this way. Let it manifest, and then let that be a feedback for you, a learning for you, and then you work back and you keep working on that, and that's how the inner call will guide you and help manifest in your life. On the other hand, if you choose to avoid something which is your sweet spot, this is what I really love to do, but you know what, this is not going, what if this happens or that happens, and something makes you change and you go here, you might succeed here temporarily, but your true happiness will not find expression. Many people, today it's very normal to say midlife crisis. There was no such thing as midlife crisis in those days. There was vanaprastha ashram, and there were times when people will gladly give up everything and retire into a state of now satsangas, and let's now look to the next phase of life. Gladly they would do that. There was a civilization that practiced that, right? We don't do that today. We say midlife crisis. Why? Because you followed something which was perhaps not even your call, because it was told you have to do this. So let me do this. I have to get graduated. I got graduate. Now I have to get married. I have to find a job. I have to do this. I have to buy a house. I have to buy a car. This is my social status. I have to do this. Who told you that? So we have assumed this based on what we see around. Is that who I am really? I never gave myself a chance. So finding your inner call is one thing, and then implementing that is a whole different thing. It's not easy, but it's not impossible either. Or let me sing this short 4-line bhajan that Baba would sing, a very simple 4-line bhajan, which is, I think, brings all of this into proper perspective and conveys the essence of what this is all about. And the bhajan goes like this. Satyam jnanam anantam brahma. Satyam jnanam anantam brahma. Satyam jnanam anantam brahma. Satyam brahma. Jnanam brahma. Anantam brahma. Satyam jnanam anantam brahma. Satyam jnanam anantam brahma. Satyam jnanam anantam brahma. Satyam brahma. Jnanam brahma. Anantam brahma. Satyam brahma. Satyam jnanam anantam brahma. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Himalayas always call me, but because of COVID, I think a lot of things have been put on hold. So I don't have the answer to you other than a simple yes. I don't have a date, or I don't have any such thing. But if I do, I'll definitely share it with you all, and we'll see how we can organize a nice trip to those lovely places, especially Kedarnath and beyond Kedarnath. Those places are so magical, so beautiful. It draws you to deep meditation and spirituality. Being in the present is being in the moment. It's both the same. Okay. Right now, where I am or where you are at this moment is because of what I have done in the past. What I do now lays the seed for what's going to happen in the future. So the present, the being in the moment, gives you a window, if you will, of the past and the future. You are living inside a home, right? The whole city doesn't live inside your home. How do you get to see the whole city? Where is the traffic going to come and where is it going to go? The roads outside your home. All you have to do is open a window and look out, or go to the balcony and look out. Suddenly, what happens is the whole panoramic view of your city comes into your view. That is the beauty of that being in the moment. If I catch myself at any time during any day, at any part of the day, I will either be in the past or in the future. Ask yourselves this question. You're either planning for what to eat next or what to do next. Always, habitually, I am either in the future or I am in the past. What happened, you know? And so we rarely, very rarely catch ourselves being in the moment, because in the moment, there is, in meditation, as you begin to meditate or being in the moment, you begin to realize more and more that being in the moment is like stepping into that balcony. Suddenly you'll get that vision, and that moment gives you the experience of omniscience and omnipresence. We will not understand this until we experience being naked in that moment. You have to be naked in the sense devoid of the past, devoid of the future. At this moment. That's why in yoga, what they do is they tell you simply focus on your breath. Let the thoughts come and go. Don't ignore it, because it's like, you're inside your house, outside, the neighbor's dog is barking, the neighbor's running up and down. Does that bother you too much? Unless it's extremely noisy, you'll say, Pata nahi, he's doing something, let him do his stuff. It doesn't bother you, right? Similarly, if you let the thoughts go without taking ownership of those thoughts, let it go as if it's happening in somebody else's home or some other place, but you are simply focused on the breath. It will bring you the training, and I'm giving you one of the many paths that's available in yoga. The way I practice it is it brings you to the moment, and in that moment you get these glimpses. You get the glimpses, you get the intuition, you get this understanding, you get the clarity. Everything happens in that moment, because in that moment it's like I said, stepping out into the balcony. Suddenly things open, not at a conscious level, at a very deep unconscious level. Things begin to change, and all the subconscious fears, unconscious fears that we are holding on to, which we may know consciously, we may not know consciously, because certain things from my childhood, certain things from my past life begins to influence who I am today, right? If I want to break all that, how do I do? If I'm constantly living in the past and the future, I can never get to that, because I'm constantly borrowing ideas from the past and imagining things to be in the future, and allowing both these to define my present moment. But what is the present moment? I've never experienced it. So if I learn to experience the present moment, that moment gives the opening to understanding what the real self is. That being in the moment begins to clear the unconscious fears, subconscious fears, in that clarity of being in the moment. And it's not easy to be in the moment. It's not. Try it. But even the attempt itself does a lot of cleansing at deeper levels. In yoga, we call it the level of the chitta. And ultimately, chitta, vritti, nirodha, all the vrittis, all the modifications that are happening at much deeper levels begin to slowly subside, because you're not letting the past affect you. You're not letting your imaginations of what could be the future affect you. You're simply learning to be joyfully in the present, which is why Baba would say namasmarana. Why is namasmarana so important? How is that related to being in the present? Because in namasmarana, there is no I want this, Krishna give me this, Rama give me this. No, you are losing yourself in the Krishna consciousness. You're losing yourself in the Rama consciousness. The word of Krishna, Rama, and Sai becomes that balcony. You are stepping into their world, their consciousness, which frees you from your past and your future and your ideas, and all your limitations free you. So you could practice breath, watching your breath. You could simply practice the name again and again and again. I have a Ramanama Pranayama, which is on our channel, 16-minute version, 24-minute version, 48-minute version, simply breathing in and out, allowing 4 Rams to go in, 8 Rams to come out. Just the name of Ram. Just the name of Ram. Now you might say, but what is the benefit? What do I do? What do I get? And that's the point. You let go of all this. What is it going to give me? Because then again, you're talking of the future. Just sit and lose yourself into being in that moment. Then the experience, a glimpse into that omnipresence will come to you. Your intuition will develop. You will be able to tune in to the divinity within. Then God speaks to you. You will listen to that word. You'll be guided. It's an amazing experience. While it's not easy, it is definitely possible through practice, being in the moment.